All right, so there is some major breaking news in the Trump legal dramas that are playing out across the country. So let's start with the breaking news in Georgia. If you're just joining us, if you're listening or watching on one of the platforms, and listen, this is something that happened literally like 10 minutes before we went on the air, but we can break it down for you because we've been following it very closely. Out of Georgia, of course, you had this separate hearing of whether or not Fani Willis and Nathan Wade, but specifically Willis as DA, should be removed from the case, that she is compromised, that she brought in Nathan Wade, this $700,000, that it was inappropriate that because they had this personal relationship, and then they went on. Then they actually testified under oath. She stormed in the room one day last week, remember, and they didn't bring her back the next day because she wanted to set the record straight. One of the things they wanted to set the record straight on is how many times did you actually visited Miss Willis's apartment? Well, the attorneys for President Trump asked Wade this last week, but now that's before we got this info. I want you to hear the questioning. This is, again, Steve Sadow asking Wade about how many times did you go to her apartment? Because we know that they did have the personal now, a private this other relationship while he was going through this divorce. Take a listen.
Would you say that was frequent? When I say frequent, do you think prior to November 1st of 2021, you were at the condo more than 10 times?
No, sir.
So it would be less than 10 times?
Yes, sir.
So if phone records were to reflect that you were making phone calls from the same location as the condo before November 1st of 2021, and it was on multiple occasions, the phone records would be wrong?
If phone records reflected that, yes, sir.
They'd be wrong?
They'd be wrong.
Okay.
Not a very good attorney, Wade, because Logan.
Well, clearly they knew something that we didn't.
Sadow knew what he had.
Clearly.
And Wade wasn't thinking at the time. No. He stuck with his less than 10. And now we have at least 35 visits with his phone, getting there at night. And most of the time, it also contradicts. They both said they never spent the night there. They've got multiple times where the phone got there at night
at some
and
point,
did not leave until the morning.
At some point, these people's personal lives, but you go, when is enough? And when is enough to just wrap this all up?
Well, I would wonder this, and I did pose this to Andy Economo as DA, if she actually thinks that there's any merit in this case. I mean, she charged 16 people in this, Logan. It's not just President Trump. Some of these people have actually pled out because they just didn't want to be part of this anymore. Who, by the way, who could be restored to justice? Does she just quit this case? Does she drop
That's
the
what
case?
I mean. At what point do you just say enough is enough?
I mean, she remove herself from the case and say, obviously, I don't think I'm not sure she's the type who does. She's the type who stormed into a room when she didn't have to last week. Yeah. She could have prepared herself.
Well, I think you have to weigh your options at this point and go, what's more damaging to your career? At this point,
is over.
I'm saying to back off.
I think.
Yes, but there are ways to spin this.
Yeah, don't try.
And even if it's just a media career. So what you'd rather do is run the clock out. I just don't think she's going to be running
for governor of Georgia now.
Probably not.
Yeah, your political
probably
career
not. But you can figure out a way to, if you're against the conservatives, against Trump.
Oh, sure.
There are ways you can parlay that to a career. We've seen that. Look at half the MSNBC commentators. They're all the people that we would have said the same thing, whether it's Strzok and Page and all these people who show up every day like everything is normal. But so I do think there is a bit of that as well. But this data, clearly they knew about it. We heard that from the soundbite there. And now it's going to play out very interestingly. Tell the people, though, why this matters to the big part of the case. In the sense of, essentially, we know why this part's controversial, but how does it actually affect the Trump case?
I mean, she could drop the entire case because the whole case has been compromised. The DA could quit. A new DA would be appointed and say, this is all done. This started off with a lie. So when the DA starts the case off with a lie, I'm not going to try and reset this up for her. I re-prosecute 16 people. Again, just restarting. This would have to all restart if she's removed. While President Trump is likely, he's going to win South Carolina primary tomorrow. The question is, does he win it by, 35 or 40 points? And then you get into Super Tuesday, and it should be basically over at that point. So what prosecutor is going to bring that? Who's going to take on that case? No one. So this could be the end of the Georgia prosecution. Now, in New York, they said, no extension. You got to put up your $400 million. He's got now 24 days to do it, or we're going to start seizing your assets.
Trump claims this is a violation of his Eighth Amendment rights, which protects citizens from being subjected to excessive fines. Basically, the exact language is citizens will not be required nor imposed cruel or unusual punishments. Does this Does something like $355 million qualify here?
In New York, Rob, you've got two unique things. To appeal the case, you've got to post the bond. So you've got to post the bond means you've got to put up about $19 million just to secure it. That's you're not going to get back from the bond company, plus $400 million or so in a mix of cash and assets. Then, and only then, can you appeal the case to the appellate division in New York and ultimately to the highest court in the New York State, which is the Court of Appeals, to look at some of those issues about the excessiveness here of this very unique New York law, which a lot of businesses now are taking note of, that you can pay back your loans. You can have no issue with those companies. They've never brought suit against him for not paying his loans. He's paid them back on time. They testified to that. But if New York still feels like you shouldn't have gotten that loan, you can be penalized.
$355 million. Do you think, just based on what the Eighth Amendment says, the language of the Eighth Amendment, do you think that's excessive?
He's harmed no private companies.
Right.
He's paying his, the state taxes. He's employing thousands of people in New York. This was an attorney general who ran on getting Trump, and she found this provision that was unique to New York, that you don't have to worry about all of that. You can have all the testimony you want there. We can still think you weren't correct in what you filed, as if, and President Trump said, these banks don't do their own due diligence before loaning you out hundreds of millions of dollars. The rush to this matter is getting this bond set so that he can appeal the case and fight those battles.
There's two legal breaking things with the Donald Trump world. One is not as shocking. I said it on Newsmax at 6:40 in the morning yesterday. I said, most people, when you file for like an extension in a civil case to put up your bond, most people probably would get it. You might not get as much time as you wanted, but somewhere in between, at least you get a real a judge to really consider it. And when you're talking about having to put up $400 million, and right now you got 24 days to do it, adding 30 more days to that, it's not like you're saying you're trying to do it in 6 months. You said I could do this. I just need give you 30 more days so I can put the right assets together and the right. The assets plus some cash together, because to get that bond, you've also got to pay about $19 million to a bond company that you can't get back. So the great thing about the persecution of Donald Trump is they could lose that case in New York and he's out $20 million right away that he never gets back. So when people say like he's running for president because, I saw Tulsi Gabbard say this at CPAC, because only for himself, I mean, he lost $20 million even if he wins ultimately that case in New York just to get the bond. And they said yesterday, surprised that Judge Erdogan said, no, you don't get an extension. You've got to put up the $400 million of cash and assets, and now it's 24 days, or I'm going to let Letitia James start seizing properties. And she wants 40 Trump Wall Street. And how bold they are about it, too, because of the politics. Then we see the Fani Willis news that we talked about there. They lied about how many times they were together. It looks like the cell phone data is refuting that by about 25 to 26 times. They lied about spending the night together, the contact, thousands of text messages, thousands of phone calls. So we know the judge has got a hearing on Monday with Wade's former partner who tried to claim a lot of privilege last week. We also know that both sides get to present like a final argument in this. It's not, again, it's like the defense is actually presenting, the final case. I don't know if we even get there next week, or does Willis just say, I'm out. I'll recuse myself from this case. Then a new DA would get put forward, and I'm not sure they'd have to restart everything from zero. Her entire office would be removed. So they'd have to start from zero, and then you get towards way too close to political interference. So again, this news is very important, because not just to Donald Trump, but to all those other people who, again, are facing the political persecution of being, legal persecution of being associated with or working for Donald Trump. So we will keep you updated.